birthday, founded in 1970, so we're over 50 years of celebrating the earth. I think it was really less of a celebration, more of a rallying call, trying to get people to become more aware of the impact we were having on the planet, on natural systems. And for 50 years it's been an annual opportunity to get out and enjoy the natural world, celebrate the natural world, and think about how we can reduce our impacts.
I would say one interesting thing about this site at West Brook, especially here in Suffolk County, is that this is kind of like a riverine marsh habitat that's super rare across Long Island. So it's not often that you find this kind of like open floodplain on a stream where a stream is free flowing. And that's why the system at West Brook is so unique and why we're trying to protect it. Something else that's really cool here is that there's tons and tons of native plants coming up here, which is really great because kind of our ecosystem has evolved for all the different species to work together, especially when they're native species. The problem comes in when you get an invasive plant like phragmites that comes in and dominates a system. So then you don't have any interaction between those local native species. For instance, you won't get the bees or the butterflies coming in to pollinate. You won't get the dragonflies or like the local coastal birch. You won't get all those other really cool and neat, beautiful parts of an ecosystem if it's just dominated by an invasive species like phragmites, or also known as the common reed.
Yeah, so this is the site of the former West Brook that was dammed up 120 years ago, and in 2019 the dam failed and the pond drained out, and State Parks hasn't repaired it yet and is sort of studying the site and trying to figure out what to do. Seatuck and other organizations have been urging State Parks not to rebuild the dam and allow this site to restore. When it first drained, it was a muddy mess, and there were concerns that it was just going to be an eyesore, and we said just give it time. And within the first 6 months, a year, plants were growing, plants that had been seeds that were dormant in that seed bank for 120 years, just waiting for the right conditions. As it dried out and the sun reached them, they started growing, and almost everything that came out of the ground first was a native plant that belongs in this habitat, this sort of coastal wetland plain. And we did some surveys here with the Long Island Botanical Society and the New York Natural Heritage Program, including the New York State botanist. Having them here, I say, was like having the bunch of 7 or 8 year olds in the world's greatest candy shop. They were just beside themselves with what was coming out of the ground. Really, we had 7 or 8 rare plants, not just rare to Long Island, but rare to New York. And the site is like 90% dominated by native plants still, almost 3 years on. But there are some threats, and the biggest threat is the phragmites, the invasive, the Asiatic phragmites species that was already here on the edges of the pond, on both edges, and on the berm of the highway here. And like the other plants, it saw an opportunity. It had some room to grow as the site dried out, and it's been encroaching. And it grows by rhizomes, so it's been sending shoots out into the basin and sending up new growth. And if any other coastal waterway on Long Island, phragmites, when it gets a foothold, can dominate and grow in a dense monoculture, which squeezes out most other plants, most other birds and insects and other wildlife that just don't use it. So we're trying to protect it by stopping the encroachment of the phragmites, by engaging volunteers to walk through the site. They've been given a little lesson on how to identify it, and they're pulling out these sort of pioneering shoots of phragmites in an effort to safeguard this site.
Well, the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area is concerned with protecting the biodiversity of Long Island, and especially in really cool sites like this. So we're here pulling up phragmites. I have a little bit here. And it's the kind of plant that could really take over an ecosystem. A lot of people might think that it's native because they see it everywhere, but it's an invasive plant. It can outcompete native plants, which is bad for our ecosystem, all the organisms that live here. And so being able to have volunteers come out like this, and we're just helping Seatuck with this, to pull up some of this phragmites, really protects its ecosystem and the beneficial plants that live here.
My name is Eric, and we're the Shymans of the Shyman family. This is Lucas, Lori, and Nathan. And we're here to just help our community as much as we can. It's important to help the earth and to recognize that all of this is changing and we have to do our part to save it. So we try to instill that into our kids.
This site was impounded, and the dam was built over 120 years ago. There was a landowner here that wanted, my understanding is, to attract waterfowl to the impoundment so he could hunt them in the wintertime. But these stumps that are along as the pond drains, the creek has found its natural channel, its historic channel, and these stumps used to line the creek. Atlantic white cedar we think is what they are, because they've been underwater for 120 years. They haven't rotted much at all. They're still incredibly hard, and we know that Atlantic white cedar is very rot resistant, hard wood. So it's a tree there's not many of them left on Long Island. Not too many stands. It looks like this was sort of typical of Long Island's South Shore streams. These white cedars growing along the creek edge.
We're the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area, and basically our organization travels all along Long Island, from out in Montauk all the way out to the city, surveying and managing sites for invasive plant species. We basically go around and we survey land sites to see what species may have taken over and aggressively outcompeted other native species, so that we can log them into our GIS systems and go out and get rid of them.
Manage
remove them. Manage them.
Yeah, and we're a voluntary organization of partners, so Seatuck is one of our partners that we're helping out today, and many other partners like state parks that work with invasive species all over the island.